Hey, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome to another session of Soul Therapy Live. I hope and pray that you've had a great week so far. And we have made it to, as the camels would say it, hump day, hump day, hump day. So I love to talk about consistency, and we're going to continue our with part two of what it means to truly, um, you know, be faithful, to be focused, and also to be fruitful and having those godly living principles for everyday life. But before I get started, I have some dad jokes. I have some dad jokes for you because we were at a dad joke deficit, and I don't want to hold anybody back from hearing what I have to share. After all, I think that it is. Hey, how you doing? After all, I think that it is very important to give the people what they want. All right, how about this one? So I got three of them for you. Why did the gym close down? Why did the gym close down? Any guesses? It just didn't work out. Okay. Um, I may not say that one. How about this one? Every time I take my dog to the park, the ducks try to bite him. That's what I get for buying a purebred dog. You get it, purebred. Okay. And then, last but not least, I'm reading a book on the history of glue, sticky type of glue. I just can't seem to put it down. All right, well, that's all I got. Lisa, see, this the problem is that people entertain my foolishness, and so again, I have to give the people what they want, even if they don't like it. Even if they don't like it. So, good evening, everyone. Good evening. Welcome to the Soul Therapy Podcast, where we talk about dad jokes, life, and other curious things. And so, to piggyback on what we were talking about last week, we ended the conversation, which was really a good conversation about consistency over intensity. And so, we're going to pick up where we left off of with a verse of scripture. And it's going to come from out of Galatians chapter 6, verse 9. And I think this is very encouraging to all of us, no matter what stage that you are in life. Galatians chapter 6, verse 9 says, Let us not grow weary while doing good, for in due season we shall reap if we do not give up or lose heart. Again, many people are motivated for a season, but God blesses those who remain faithful over time. Sometimes it's just about having the right opportunity and blessing and favor when it presents itself. But you'll never get the opportunity if you're not in the proper position or if you leave too early. Some of the greatest blessings I've gotten is has been when I've stayed after class to talk to a teacher or when I have stayed for an extra 15 or even 30 minutes to talk to a particular coach, whether it was football or wrestling. Those are two sports I did in high school and even in semi-pro years ago. So those additional nuggets, if you will, were very, very important to me. It's almost like even some of the things I experienced with a lot of the organizations that I'm a part of, there is the meeting and then there's the meeting after the meeting. A lot of times the meeting in and of itself is formalized, but you really get the truth and the proper context and even some intentionality after the meeting has actually completed as well. And also, before I get too far in depth, don't forget to like, share, or subscribe. If you see us on YouTube, share it with somebody, all right? Share it with somebody. You may not know me, or where I come from. But I assure you, if you follow this information and wisdom, because information, you get that from anywhere. But when you have wisdom, in order for it to be able to apply to your life, it can be of great importance if you apply it. Matter of fact, it can be life changing. Consistency is something that's so very important because I believe that great lives are built one faithful day at a time. And this is coming from a person who wasn't the strongest of students in high school. I didn't always stand out as an individual, kind of, played in the background. Part of that was my personality, being more introverted. very quiet, and or some people would call that being very shy. You know, really just taking the background, and a lot of times it was really not just my personality, but it was also lack of confidence about specific things. I'll even remember where when I went to college, and I was provisionally accepted to college, by the way. But God graced me to be able to go to the Florida A&M University, on the highest of seven hills, right? So I remember in my freshman year, I remember taking this public speaking class, and I just took the class because all of the other students were telling me it's really, really easy and I could just pass, and you don't really have to do a whole lot. And I was like, okay, well, I'll take the class, no problem, because I was on the extended party package anyway, so I needed to have those classes to get my GPA back up. But I took the class, and I remember, never doing any type of public speaking anywhere. 18 years old, just newly into school. And first semester, I think it was my first semester class. And I remember having to do a short speech. And boy, I tell you, I was sick to my stomach, could barely talk, heart beating out of my chest. I could still remember the classroom. And this has been several decades ago. And it was terrifying. And I thought to myself, self, you never, ever, ever want to put yourself in the position where you have to talk in front of others on a regular basis. And so, suffice to say, I was able to get through the class, but I was like, I'm never doing that again, ever. And then life happened. And it just so happened to be that I got more outspoken about things that I was very passionate in, whether it was things about faith, politics, sports, you know, student life, whatever it may be. And then that kind of trickled over into, additional student projects in the latter part of my schooling matriculation at the university, and then going, of course, doing group projects with the master's degree. But, all of those things were, just normal experiences. But I never would have expected that I would have been a teacher. It was one of my very first jobs that I got from out of college, after I could not um, really grasp passing the certification exam for occupational therapy. So, for those of you that don't know, I went to school for occupational therapy. I'm actually pretty good at it. Definitely love the people, love working in the nursing homes, but I wasn't a really strong test taker. And I remember taking that test like three times and $300 or $400 a pop, and asking my parents to pay for it over and over and over again. After that third time, I was like, forget it. I don't think this is for me. There has to be a reason for this block. And I deviated. I changed course and went to information technology, studied the books. Actually, one of my fraternity brothers that was with me at that time, we're still friends to this day, say, hey, Andre, you made a lot of parties, went to a lot of parties, and you made a lot of graphic arts and design flyers for us for our parties and other groups. So I ever thought about getting into computers? And I was like, my dad did say I was pretty good at taking a vacuum cleaner apart and putting it back together. And I used to spend hours upon hours trying to make a fake video game on the Commodore 64 for all of my new school people. Is an ancient computer. It's an ancient computer, but to us, it was brand new. Just like today, the Switch 2 may be new to you, but 30 years from now, when you have, grandchildren for your particular era, they're going to look at the toys that you're playing with today, and they'll be like, man, that's so old, right? It's just a cycle of life. But when I made that pivot, um, and God directed me into that path, the doors just began to open up. But it wasn't easy. The job that I got was all about public speaking because it was basically a college professor. And I never really taught in that particular capacity before, but I had to pass a whole bunch of more tests. So number one, I had to pass a lot of tests, and I had to do two things I had most dread: taking more tests and also doing public speaking. But sometimes God gives you certain assignments that He knows that you're going to be really good at, as long as you stay faithful or consistent in that particular area. Consistency actually really matters in spiritual growth. It matters in marriage and parenting, physical fitness. I didn't have such a good day yesterday, working out. I was doing, sometimes you split up your body parts, and I was just doing, um, um, you know, a, um, trying to do the dumbbell flies or what have you. And I normally have like 100 pounds in each hand, and I'm usually able to finish all three sets. But for whatever reason on yesterday, I just couldn't get it up and moving forward. So I kind of did a variation of that. And I was just trying to get something done, but I really didn't feel like I um, gave it my all. Wasn't necessarily tired, but it's just like I wasn't really feeling that I was there. And then I thought about what we talked about together on the last time that the podcast was going forward about consistency. Because even though I didn't feel like I got the results of the workout, really feeling that burn like how I normally would feel, the point, the bright side of that is that I at least showed up. And it's better than not doing anything at all. It's very, very important. Why is this really like a life changing point of view? Well, the reason why it's a life-changing point of view is because I believe that, small disciplines become life-changing habits. And just as I said last week, that a person of average intelligence but great consistency will always outpace and be more successful than the undisciplined genius. The undisciplined genius can have something that is very, very powerful in a very, very short period of time that seems like it's very overwhelming. But because of a lack of discipline and consistency, what they may have gotten that may be seeming overwhelmed, and the person that's just average, just trudging along like the tortoise and the hare, right? It would seem like they get the early wins, but at the very end of all things, what's good of you having a one-hit wonder? Yes, you made a good one-hit wonder, but you can't continuously eat off of that. Whereas the other person never had a hit, but they consistently had sales, but it's on a smaller level. So which one do you think is better? Making $1 million in a day and then lacking financial management skills and then blowing through it, or making $60,000 a year over 25 or 30 years? You could still accumulate almost the same thing, because while it may seem like that's a really large dollar amount, if you don't have the character and the discipline to keep up with it and maintain it, you'll be just as broke as you were before you even scratched off that lotto ticket with two cigarettes inside of your mouth at the cozy corner store on the corner of Moncrief and 33rd Street, right? I'm just teasing. I'm just teasing. Again, consistency beats occasional excellence. There's nothing more frustrating than having someone that has all of the knowledge, skills, and abilities and talent, and they show a flash of brilliance, and all of your hopes and dreams are hanging on the potential of this one particular person. He could be a great husband. She could be a great wife. I'm going to lose these 25 pounds. I'm going to get stronger. I'm going to go back to school. I have the aptitude. I'm showing this brilliance. I'm taking on new projects, only to stop cold and just say, never mind. Or the imposter syndrome, where you disqualify yourself even though you know that you are qualified, but you're looking for a safe path forward. There is no safe path when it comes to faith, for we walk by faith and not by sight. Consistency beats occasional excellence. So you have to ask yourself this particular question, right, as a practical challenge. What one habit can I faithfully practice every day for the next 90 days? In order for you to rewire certain things inside of your brain, including that rewiring for healthy habits, studies show that if you do something consistently for 21 days, then it creates additional synapses inside of your brain, or different neural pathways inside of your brain just after 21 days. Now, I don't know why 21 is like the magic number. I know, there's biblical numerology, but that aside, there's something about doing something straight for 21 days. Those neural pathways are developed very differently, right? And sometimes the things that you most need are things that you have to do consistently over that 21 days. This is why we have spiritual disciplines such as fasting or fasting from certain types of vegetables, or and only having vegetables, or fasting from sweets or social media, or not really having a whole bunch of human contact. All of those things are to develop inward character or in-depth character. What can you practice, even if it's not 90 days, just for 21 days, that you really need to do, and you do it consistently? Consistently. Now we have to make sure that whatever we do for that 21 days has to be complemented with not derailing the progress that we have, right? It's like you can exercise for 21 days straight and eat sweets for 21 days straight. No, no, no. You have to exercise for 21 days, or for those 3 weeks, or for those 90 days. And you also have to have a good diet. You have to consume the proper things over those 90 days, or else you're going to hinder your particular progress. So you have to be solid all the way around. And one of the ways that I believe that you can also be solid and keep that level of consistency is the one albatross that all of us sometimes have around our necks, right? And that is time management skills. Again, I believe that one of my weak areas earlier in life, and I had to get a hold of it, was having all these brilliant ideas, innovation, hard worker, but then not valuing the need of having a calendar. So my wife, she is excellent as a calendar. Sister Amanda's also excellent at having a calendar, and they kind of got me into this particular groove, earlier on in ministry. And I was like, I don't need stuff on the calendar. I barely look at calendars. I was one of those people to where are we going? Where are we going? Oh, okay, okay. Well, we're going to go to this particular place today. I'll go ahead and clear out my schedule. It's not a big deal. I didn't have anything planned anywhere, right? If I was going to do something, I was just going to do it on the fly. And I kind of still kind of like that. It's still kind of spontaneous. But I needed a calendar. I needed to have different slots of time so that I can actually dedicate that time to whatever craft, whatever skill, honing in on different pieces of knowledge that I was trying to get better at, things of that nature. And I wanted to improve, but the only way to improve was to set time aside, because oftentimes you could be very busy but not productive. You probably heard that before, right? Being very busy, I'm just doing all this stuff like an octopus, but I only get like two things done. So you have to have calendars in place, and you don't need to just have calendars and invites in place. You have to actually show up during that particular time frame. Showing up and staying focused to what you need to do during that time frame will help you to stay more disciplined, not only in your own life, in various different areas, but definitely when it comes to time management. Ephesians chapter 5, verse 15 and 16 says, "Therefore be careful how you walk, not as unwise men, but as wise, making the most of your time, because the days, as we all know, are very evil." Time is one of God's greatest gifts. And scripture says that our life is but a vapor, or simply speaking, using our own American terminology, you have your birth and then you have your death. What really matters the most is what you do in that dash that's in between. And that dash is very small in the grand scheme of things, right? Especially to finite beings that are constrained by time in this physical world. A lot of people, I saw a Facebook post a little bit earlier today about that was a passage of scripture about how Jesus said, "Behold, I'm coming quickly." And then of course you'll have somebody that's mocking that and says, "Well, Jesus has been saying that he's coming fast and coming quickly for several years now, and he's not, if he ain't come by now, then he may not be," right? But that's the perspective of an ant in the view of an elephant. Not to say that we are ants, but I'm just talking about, relatively speaking, the ant is going to take a much longer time to get from one side of the wall to the other, as opposed to myself, where in 2 steps or in 3 steps I can get from one side of this room to the other side. To the ant, things are going very, very slow. But to me, because of my size, it's going to go very, very fast. Now, just think about it. God is not constrained by time. He does things at the proper time, right? How does a being that is not constrained by time, that is eternal, go quick? From that eternal vantage point, well, if I sit outside of time, what may be fast for me is extremely slow for you. And likewise, when you're young or sometimes inexperienced, waiting and not having the true virtue of patience embedded within your soul, you want things done yesterday, but sometimes God delays things in order to build character. A delay is not a denial. And other times, the extreme is taken in place, right? So we have great time management skills, but then we have a tendency to procrastinate and then put things off, put things off, put things off, which is also showing a lack of discipline as well. And we have to make sure that we stay on point as much as possible, or at least get people to help us to stay on point much as possible. Faithful people schedule what matters most. So we have to think about how we can prioritize our priorities. So I have a priority that I've shared with our congregation, our membership over the years. Very, very classic priority list, right? And that's God first. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you. Matthew 6, verse 33, one of our favorite passages of scripture. So it's God first always. Then myself, if I'm single. If I'm married, my wife or your husband and you, because you're one. So it's one and the same. Okay. Then after that, it is your family, or the extension of your family. And then after your family, you may have your job, because that allows you to put food on the table, close your back, and allows for you to maintain a place where you stay. And then, of course, after your job and your occupation and your career, then you may have extracurricular activities. It could be a organization that you're a part of, a club, something that may be a hobby, comic books. By the way, He-Man, if you did not see it inside of the movie theater and you want to watch something on Prime for free for all of my cheap folk that are out there, watch He-Man Masters and the Masters of the Universe. I'm going to watch it like 500 times. I went to the movie theater like 3 times to watch the same movie. So back from that commercial break, I had to put that club plug in there. So outside of that and your extracurricular activities, then comes everybody else. Friends, they come before the hobbies, and then you, of course, your hobbies, and then change that order around, and then it's everybody else. So it's your faith, yourself, spouse, if you're married. Then it comes down to your family. After your family comes your career. After your career comes your true friends. After your true friends comes your hobbies, and then after your hobbies is everything else. But what ends up happening is that people spend a lot of time doing everything else as opposed to focusing on the main thing. And even though we're in this modern era where we have all of these nice amenities that are really accessible to a lot of people, you would almost think that, the old world word idol worship is no longer a thing, but there's a lot of people who put the cart before the horse or inverse that particular order, right? You put everything else ahead of God, family, whatever. And then what you'll see happening is that a lot of things start systematically crumbling before your eyes. And it's very hard for you to put things back in order because things are in such disorder. That's the reason why the scripture says that God um, promotes, if you will, paraphrasing here, things with decency and order. Do things in good taste and be orderly about it. You could do things in bad taste and have it in extreme order, and then you'll get results, but then you have a whole bunch of um, um, casualties along the way, and those things are unnecessary. Decency means that you want to do things in the proper order with taste and dignity and respect. And then, of course, you also want to do things in a systematic order. And it's very, very important. So, what I see what's happening with a lot of people is that people are falling victim to rampantly, falling victim to idol worship, especially for those of us that know better, that do have a relationship with God. That idol worship stuff, if it can get a people wiped out and absorbed into another culture, the children of Israel and the 11 tribes that went with, including Manasseh, that went into Assyrian captivity, where the Assyrians took some of the children of Israel, or the 11 tribes of Israel, into captivity for their idol worship, and they did not return. They were absorbed and they intermixed until their identity was thusly erased, right? And those people biblically were called Samaritans. They don't know what their own identity is, and no one could tell who they are because of idol worship. They were taken away. That's Assyrian captivity. Then there was also Babylonian captivity. Babylonian captivity is the one that everybody kind of knows about, and that's the 70 years that the tribe of Judah was taken away because they were all into the idols as well. No repentance, but because God had a plan for his, the root of Jesse and the seed of Abraham to spring forth, and the throne of David to come forth, and now we have Jesus Christ, then he had to preserve them, but still had to teach them a lesson. So they had to go away for 70 years. I know the thoughts and the plans that I have for you, thoughts of good and not of evil, so that you could come to good success, but you still going to jail for that 70 years because of your disobedience, because you had life out of order. You put too many things in front of me when I am the source of everything that you have. Why are you going to put God last if he's the source of everything that you have? That's why you had to put a chin check. I put like kind of like that post back on my wall, on my cover on my wall. I had my sons for a little while. But one of my favorite posts is the post that I have up there. It says, everything that I have, I owe to God. Hashtag Jesus saves. Those reminders or moments and times, even though you could be as in depth with the scriptures and have knowledge of God and close to God and you praise and you worship and you preach and teach and all of that stuff like that, um, all of those things are very, very, those things become very apparent over a particular period of time. And you have to stay focused so that you don't get swept away. And sometimes I even have to catch myself, even though I'm, again, Pastor Martin, right? Brother Dr. Pastor Martin, all this other stuff like that. You still have to make sure that you put God first. My brain may be on this TikTok post, but I need to make sure that when I leave for work, I have my praise and worship music on because I want to give God worship and glory. I may have been doom scrolling, trying to break that habit, right? But I'm going to make sure that when I wake up in the morning, I'm going to tell God, thank you for the beautiful day. Even if it's as small as the whole classic hood prayer, Lord, I thank you for waking me up this morning and setting me on my way. You have my heart your mind regulated and your heart fixed. Even if you do something as religious as that, if it comes from a good place, God will still hear it and he will still honor it. That is still putting God first, acknowledging him in all of your ways, putting God first, and being intentional about that. You never want to bite the hand that feeds you, and you never want to forget the hand that fed you. Never, ever, ever forget that. So don't put the cart before the horse. You also need to make sure that you eliminate distractions, right? Sometimes we can get very busy, but again, idol worship, I think, is probably one of the major things that's getting the people of God and even in general paganistic society in a lot of trouble because we're looking at everything else except for what we're supposed to focus on. We got the great and dynamite job, but now I barely have any time for my particular family and I'm all grouchy and whatnot. But hey, you chose the job, so what are you complaining about? Right? Or now I can't work the job because I don't had a stroke because I'm not saying anything, but I have that hidden narrative going on inside of my heart that's building up with resentment and exhaustion because I made the decision not to move forward, not to apply for something different. And I'm tired all the time, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But again, we have to be accountable for the choices that we make. So the way that you eliminate distractions oftentimes is just to take things off of your plate. And for all of my enablers out there, for you to start using the two-letter profane word in our American lexicon of English, and that is no. No, absolutely not. Nada. It ain't going to happen. No. And you'll be surprised that people actually respect you more when you say no as opposed to you saying yes all the time. Your yes has to be strategic, and yes will go very far with the right people, right situations, right circumstances. But for the most part, there's a lot of distractions that are out there. You have to say, "That's right, Lisa. Am I Bugs Bunny meme? No, I'm not going to do it. Don't even ask me. Don't try. It's not going to happen." Right? And we have to make sure that our no is a godly no, as opposed to a prideful no, because pride and faith can almost feel like the same thing. Pride and or your ego and faith can feel like the same thing because you're hanging in there because nobody can deter you. But God told you no a long time ago, but the results are totally different. If God told you to hold firm and you stay faithful, then you need to stay faithful because He has a latter rain blessing for you. Latter rain basically means that there's something that's going to be great ahead, as opposed to you doing things outside of the will of God. And because of your ego and your arrogance, you won't merge your church, you won't shut down the ministry, you won't quit the job, you won't look for a new job. All of these things are because of your ego or fear of failure. And then you go through hell in a handbasket on that side because God called you to do something different, but you didn't do it. Do not mistaken faith for pride. Very, very, very important. So make sure you eliminate those distractions. Get those things off of your plate. Just go ahead and get those things off of your plate. So we talked about learning to say no, and then protect focus work time. So I have another thing like so on my computer, and I think I saw it like maybe about 2 days ago. So there's this nice little app that's called Microsoft Viva, and along with Copilot, everybody's doing the AI thing, right? AI is even accepting meeting invites from me, and I need to turn that feature off because I'm like, okay, you find the space on my calendar to accept these meetings. Denied. I need to turn off the access on that. But no, in all seriousness, this Microsoft Viva application is a nice little add-on that integrates with the calendar. And it basically told me, it says, you have a lot of meetings, which I do, for your job. And outside of your job, you need to add some focus time onto your calendar. And I'm like, focus time? But why do I need that? Don't I need to be kind of like in standby mode, waiting until someone gives me an assignment? So I'm just going to wait, patiently wait? No, that focus time or that space that you have where you're not doing anything productive, that's the time that you need to be pouring into yourself, cultivating your gift. Like that, there's one particular skill that I'm trying to learn. It's like this application called Windsurf. It's like it's AI based, and you can build applications with it very, very easy. And so I put it on my calendar, and it just so happened that Microsoft Viva saw that and it says you need to focus on this in between your meetings. Or here's this focus time, and you can do this on Thursday and Friday. The other days you can keep open for other assignments that you may get from a manager or director or managing director at your place of business. So I was like, that's really funny. Look at that. I'm not doing what someone else is telling me to do at that moment of time. I'm focusing on things that I need to do, and I could fill that time to better myself or in order to improve my craft, as opposed to just some mindless thing, right? Okay. So I thought that was pretty neat when I saw it. And I was like, oh, they blocked out my whole calendar. It shows red. That means that nobody can bother me because I'm busy. And then I can, yeah, it's called Microsoft Viva. I'll show you about it. I'll give you some game on that. I'll give you some game on that. But yeah, I thought it was like pretty neat. So it blocks out your calendar. It shows busy the entire time. And you can focus on other things, whatever that other thing may be. So protect focus work time and also learn to say no. And then finally, schedule family worship and rest. Okay. Your family time together, very, very important because God gave them to you. Even though they may be aggravating, whew, Father, help me. But they still are gifts from the Lord. Spend time with them. Next up, worship time. I love to worship in the morning. It's something about mornings for me. Evening time, no. But morning time, morning worship, absolutely. If I'm working on my sermon or I'm studying, absolutely. But my favorite time for worship is morning as soon as I get up because it just sets the tone for the day. And then of course nap time. Now if there's so many of you all I've got put it this way, I've disciplined myself to the point now to where I could schedule nap time at a drop of a dime. Oh, there's space for a nap here. Let me sit still for about 10 minutes and then I'm done. 5 minutes and then I'm done. Okay. But you got to make sure that you schedule in your rest. And then for my spouses that are out there that are very wiggly and you like to make a whole bunch of noise while the other person is sleeping, do not disturb them while they are taking their rest. Hey, guess what? If they burn out and they clunk out on you, then you're gonna be left by yourself. So if you want him or her to keep on paying those bills, let them get let them get their rest and do not disturb them or wake them up very, very gently, right? If it is an emergency. Being busy is not the same thing as being fruitful. Being productive is the goal. But being busy, man, I that's one thing that I do not like. I don't like to just have a whole bunch of stuff going on, a whole bunch of irons in the fire, and I never make any fire. What a waste of time. I do not like wasting time. And many of you all who are younger, you'll start to really grasp that even more. My wife and I, we even had a conversation later on this afternoon about the goals that we have set for ministry, some of the leadership roles that we want to take in other organizations or not, and how that will look um, over the next 9 to 10 years or 10 to 12 years. What that will look like prior to our retirement phase, right? What are some of the goals that we want to accomplish? What are some of the places that we want to go? God willing, if God continues to give us life, right? And so we had to think about, okay, it's almost like, the financial strategy that you may be given. I'll give you this example. You know how like sometimes people have the strategy or the financial strategy to where when they usually tell you like when you're young, you could take a whole lot of risks. So what you invest when you're young, if you lose it, you could kind of get it back because you have this whole, under normal circumstances, this whole lead time ahead of you. Whereas if you're older, they'll tell you, you'll see these little apps on your computer, or if you're saving up for your 401k, that you need to save up a whole lot because you were acting a fool for that first 40 years of your life. And now you gotta save heavily for that latter half before you retire, whether you retire at 62 or 72. I'm gonna work for it as long as my body allows for me to do it, right? Um, in another country. But with that being said, you're supposed to be conservative as you get older, and then you could be a little bit more or take more risk when you are younger. But I would like to say maybe it's not really about being conservative when you get older in certain things. I think that you need to be more, let's change that word. I think that as you get older, you have to be more strategic on how you spend your time and where you make your investment. There are some risks that you should take when you're older, but I would define those as calculated risks. Calculated risks. A calculated risk, as the scripture says, we've counted the cost We know what the pros and cons are. There's a chance that all of this can go up in flames, at least about a 30% chance that this could go all up in flames. But I got a 70% chance for it to really take off and for it to be beneficial. That's a calculated risk, as opposed to not stepping out on faith at all. As you get life goes on, you taking a risk is basically thinking that you're leaving things up to probability and chance. But somebody cue the B3 organ. But I serve a God that sits high and looks low and knows the end from the beginning. All of that. He will provide. Y'all ever seen that video today? This is a white man with long hair, and it says, God will provide. He will provide. He knows and sees what's ahead, and he also sees around corners. So you have to have faith. Risk is one thing. Risk is worded in such a way to where people act as if God does not exist. Therefore, they don't step out. But with God, anything is possible. That is a calculated risk. What do you mean by calculated risk? I included God into the equation. And according with his, that's right, according to his power and provision, I'm not taking a risk because I'm putting all the chips and I'm putting all that I have in his hand. And then whatever the results are what they are. Because when God blesses you, he adds no sorrow to it. When there's sorrow, I didn't say that there won't be trials and tests, because God can bless you with certain things and you can have trials and tests that goes along with it. That makes you strong enough to be able to sustain the blessing for its duration until the next season comes, if another season comes. But outside of that, no, it's supposed to be, you're supposed to have, when God blesses you, there's supposed to be many more ups than there are downs. Now, you sometimes you got to fight. Joshua's troop, they had to fight when they were in the promise. It was still the promised land. And they'll probably be like, man, I don't feel like all this fighting. I got to keep every day I had to fight over and over again. But if God gave you the promise, then it's worth fighting for. We need to make sure that we choose the right battles because God oftentimes tells us not choose certain battles. And then you go in there and you get your butt tore up just like a bare knuckle fighting championship. And then you get all battered and bruised, be like, God, where was he? Well, you left me behind. I was never included into the equation, right? So here's another practical question. Where is your time actually going each week? I like to, at times, do the Bruno Mars song, right? My wife got me turned on to Bruno Mars a little bit. Took her to go see him a couple of years ago for her birthday in Vegas. It was a great, great, great time. And there was this one particular song that was called I just don't like doing anything. I probably butcher in the words like I do most of the time. I don't feel like doing anything. Sometimes I schedule nothing for the week. Okay, when I go on vacation, guess what? I'm going to have an involuntary nap. I'm going to schedule this day. And I do this, right? I go on vacation. I go on a cruise. That very first day, I'm going to what I did over the years is that I'm going to do as many activities as possible that very first day. But that second day, someone say second day, that second day, on the second day, the God of heaven and earth said that you will rest. And so I tell my wife on this second day, I just want to lay down and do nothing and rest because I do so much anyway. What are you doing this week? Are you scheduling your rest? Are you eating better? Or are you stressing out a whole lot? Are you exercising? Are you taking care of your temple? You only get one, you don't get another one, right? How are you spending your time each particular week? Another key area that I wanted to share with you all before we head on out on this particular evening is the following. It is, um, here's a verse of scripture that's going to help you. Proverbs chapter 1, verse 5 says, a wise man will hear and increase learning. Oh, I'm going to get up under your skin with this one. And a man of understanding will attain wise counsel. Very, very, very important. So this piece right here is also what I think is very important topic as we kind of close out on tonight, and that is called lifelong learning. Lifelong learning is key. If you come to the point where you're not learning anymore and things have become monotonous, then you need to take that hand that's pointing to everybody else and you need to look at these fingers that's going back. I love learning about things. Like, classic example. I knew that I was really into like learning new things at a very young age. At a very young, I used to get in trouble for it. So when I was very young, they used to have this series of books that was called Encyclopedia Britannica. And when I was growing up, there would be door-to-door salesmen for all the solicitation, all the crazy stuff happened later on. There used to be door-to-door salesmen that used to sell Encyclopedia Britannica to different homes. And they would have almanacs and they would have, oh yeah, that's right. You being participating in the Sleep Olympics. That's right. You got to, I'm on the Sleep Olympics. Gold medal for Andre. Gold medal for Andre, right? So, um, but back to what I was saying in regards to like lifelong learning. So I was in specific situations before to where, you know, as a kid, I liked reading encyclopedias. I like studying certain things and I just like learning about unique things. And I love the encyclopedias because it was almost like an escape using my imagination along with the Letter People, the Electric Company, and all those shows on Sesame Street back in the day, and Fraggle Rock, right? Those learning shows were some of the only type of TV that we could watch when we were growing up. I was in my house, right? We didn't have cable. We just had like three or four channels, channel 30, channel 4, and some other channels that we had like back in the day in Jacksonville. And salesman, we got all of these, the encyclopedia from A all the way to Z. And I would just look inside of the encyclopedias and I was like, man, look at all of this unique stuff that's out here in the world. And this is like elementary school. I used to love those encyclopedias so much until I used to sneak them to school and I used to read them in the back of the classroom. And my teacher would be like, Mr. Martin or Andre, why are you not paying attention in class? And then I would get in trouble when I would get home. And then, of course, my mom would be like, okay, well, my dad remember that. But I would just sit in the back of the classroom and I would just read and read and read and read because that was like my escape to learn about new things. And I love that. That keeps you sharp. It keeps that brain very, very healthy as well. Your mind is a muscle. If you feed it with the same information and there's nothing different, then what's going to happen? You're going to plateau, right? Right. In order for you to exercise your mind, you need to feed it with the right type of information. Study, learn new things. So I tell you this one thing. That's why I love Chat GPT and Claude and all the AI tools so much as I kind of round out this segment. The reason why I love it so much is because I can look up all types of curious things. So I got a curious thing for it because that's what the podcast is about, right? You have bad jokes, life, and curious things. So I'm gonna give you one little curious thing about lifelong learning. So somehow, some way, on these internet streets, I ended up on this side of uh, TikTok where this person was talking about the difference between undomesticated animals and domesticated animals. Did y'all ever heard about that before? Well, there's like a group of animals, maybe about 20. There's only about 20 animals in all of the animal kingdom that you can domesticate, right? All of the animal kingdom. Cows, through thousands of years of breeding, dogs and cats, horses, pigs, livestock. Those are things that you can actually domesticate. I think even to a certain extent, even water buffalo. You can actually, all of those things are things that can be domesticated. And then they had a list of what could not be domesticated. Only 20, right? Guess what cannot be domesticated? Lions, tigers, bears, giraffes. That's why you've never seen somebody on the back of a giraffe. Zebras. I don't care what they say. Madagascar, the movie, and all of that stuff. You cannot domesticate a zebra. Here's the reason why. The reason why you can't domesticate a zebra is because they are extremely skittish. They're very jittery. They are scared at the drop of a dime. So it's and and because they're so scary, they cannot be tamed. Guess what else is on that list? You can't tame lions, tigers, or bears. None of the predators. They gonna eat you. I don't care how many times you see a cuddly little bear and they're standing up like a little grown man with a little hat on, even inside of the zoo. No, they said that even though you may raise up certain type of animals from birth, when they get old, most of the time they revert back to their original instincts. That's right. They'll turn on you. And to one person that will remain nameless. You know, another thing that cannot be domesticated, monkeys and chimpanzees. You remember this person told me that that's the reason why Bubbles couldn't stay at the house and Mike no more because he just got out of control. You can't domesticate certain things. So that's just like, and I was um, telling this person, I said, these facts are going to win me some money on a cruise ship trivia contest one of these days, I promise you. But you can't domesticate any of them. You can't do it. You can't do it. When they get fully grown, they may be nice to you when they're young, but when they get fully grown, all those instincts start to kick in. Last one that you can't domesticate. You can't domesticate a great white shark. If you try to put a great white shark inside of an aquarium or something like that, even in the zoo, they'll die because they are meant to swim for miles and miles and miles. No, you cannot have them. I don't care how many times they put those monkeys inside of diapers, they will tear you from limb or from finger to finger for little small little monkeys. They cannot be domesticated. I'm sorry. You have to put them in the cage and they need to stay in there. And what kills me is that somebody's actually tried. Their genetic makeup makes them revert right back to the way that God intended for them to be. Now, isn't that something? The animal will not, even if you try to get an animal to go off of their purpose, they'll always go back to the exact design that God had for them. Well, wait a minute. Isn't that a good thing to learn for tonight as we close? You can have a bunch of stuff that's going on. However, the question that you need to ask yourself is what you're learning, what you're engaging in, getting you on track so that you can fulfill your purpose. Especially as you mature. As you mature, your purpose should be more focused right now. It should be more focused. Okay. So God bless you. Remember, leaders never ever stop learning. Growth stops when learning stops. Make sure that you read books, listen to those podcasts, get you some headphones and listen to those podcasts, right? Seek out mentors, no matter what stage that you're in life. Seek out somebody that's an expert in or in a place where you want to go. Attend conferences. You see, but Lady Martin and I, we like to go to conferences in the church world, nonprofit world. Love to be out there. That's how you meet people. Take courses online. Shout out to all of the Divine Truth family. Oh no, monkeys are not to be trusted. Make sure that you take courses. Shout out to Divine True Family for taking that Copilot, that AI course. Continue to take those courses. Don't let it be your one time because the AI stuff ain't going nowhere, y'all. It ain't going nowhere. These data centers that are popping up are the new power plants. Those data centers that are popping up are to accommodate all the AI stuff that's coming ahead. So you better take heed. Better take heed. And the last but not least, welcoming constructive feedback is also how you learn. A person that cannot hear proper, put it this way. Paul said in the Bible, have I now therefore become your enemy because I tell you the truth? A good leader will not put yes men or women around them. A good leader will also not put a bunch of enemies around them, not intentionally. I'm not going to pick the worst of the worst to go around me on either part of the spectrum. I'm the type of people that I want around me in my close circle are those that love me the right way. Healthy love. You need to do this. Don't sell yourself short. Don't um, lack confidence in this area. These are some areas that you need to improve upon. Go back to the drawing board and look at this again. Don't repeat yourself in certain areas. You need to do the work. You need to study that particular area so that you can become better, right? All of those things can cultivate a great time of learning. And it kind of reminds me of what my dad said years ago. There's two things that last longest on this planet in our human experience. That's your voice and that's your mind. Nurture both of them. All right. Watch what you say and always continue to feed your mind with positive things. All right, God bless you. God keep you. This is my prayer. This is part two of this particular three-pack series. We will conclude next week with our same topic, dealing with being productive and what it means to have godly success. All of that is coming in our last installment on the next upcoming week. All right. So God bless you. God keep you. This is my prayer. Oh yeah, kids. Guess what? You got a couple of days left, couple of weeks left before your butts go back to school. I love you though.